All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'll wait a minute or two as people start streaming in. But thanks for joining us today. Excited for you all to be here for our panel. Um, Let me get my slides up and I'll share those with you. So if you're here for our panel, Demystifying Databases on Kubernetes from Hesitation to Confidence. We have an amazing panel of speakers today, all experts in this area. So we're excited to have them here today. So before we get into the panel, just as usual, I'll go over some community announcements. A big one, we have, I want to thank our community sponsors, our Platinum community sponsor, EDB. So thank you for sponsorship, allowing us to do these things. Of course, we have KubeCon coming up, KubeCon EU 2025, which will be in London on April 1st. So that's just around the corner. Hopefully you'll be there. If you have an all access pass, you can go to any of the co-located events. You can scan the QR code there. That'll take you to the event page. Check out the schedule. One of our panelists here will be doing a talk, Karen. So you should definitely check that out. Also, thank you to the event sponsors, our EDB and Prefect. So that keeps us coming to KubeCon and lets us participate there and allow everybody to do their talks and for people to learn new information about DOK. I just want to highlight something that the community worked on. This was like right before the end of the year, the Get Started guide, which is a guide to help people who are new to running data workloads on Kubernetes, who are sort of hesitant, and hopefully after this talk also you'll have a little more confidence. But it's a guide to get you started, because it can be a little daunting to get started in this area. So we asked the community to help put together a document to help guide people and getting started with DOK. Also, the DOK 2024 report, we do a yearly report that talks about the trends, the questions that people have in running data on Kubernetes. So we put that out, I think, right before the end of the year at KubeCon North America. So if you scan the QR code there, that's available as well. You can just go to our website as well and check that out. And then upcoming events in a month at the April town hall, we have a talk with Daniel Dowler, who'll be talking about open source feature stores for enterprise MLOps. So again, another QR code, or you can just go to our website or our meetup page and register for that event. Yeah, so that'll be a good one as well. And then if you're just interested in the community and getting involved, you can scan the QR code on the left, on the right. If you're interested in sponsoring the community, we always are looking for new sponsors to help us do the things that we do. And you can also just go to dok.community, and that's our website, and you can find a lot of information. All right, I'm going to introduce you to Lori, who will get things going and introduce you to our panelists. All right, take it away.
Thanks, Paul, and welcome everybody. My name is Lori Lurusso. I am the head of community at Percona. I am the DOK SIG co-chair, CNCF ambassador. Anyways, lots of things, but really happy to be here today with an amazing panel, an international panel. None of us are in the same area at all, which is really cool. And we all have different expertise in different areas, but we are going to be focusing on obviously data on Kubernetes today. So with that, let me introduce our first panelist. Karen, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Laurie. It is really cool to be here. I'm really excited about this. So I'm Karen Jex. I'm a senior solutions architect at Crunchy Data, which doesn't say much from the title, but I spend all of my time working with customers, helping them with databases on Kubernetes. I'm also on the Postgres Europe Board of Directors, and I'm leading the Postgres Europe Diversity Task Force, which is really quite exciting. And I am in the French Alps.
Love it. Next, Leticia.
Hey, thank you for having me. My name is Laetitia Avro, which is kind of weird for non-French speaking persons, but that's okay. Technically, I'm in a marketing team at the moment. I'm working kind of a developer relationship role. I'm trying to help the marketing teams to create demos and create content that we can publish over the internet about blogs, about videos, and so on, to demonstrate how to use correctly Postgres, how to use Postgres on Kubernetes, or any of our products that we built around, because I'm employed by EDB. And it's not the only hat I have. I'm also a community person. I'm the treasurer of PostgreSQL Europe, so I'm also in the board of directors of PostgreSQL Europe. I'm a recognized contributor to the PostgreSQL community and a project. And I'm also the founder of Postgres Women, which is an informal group with an evil plan to put more women in the light in this community. And also, I'm a university teacher teaching databases to end of master students so that they don't go out in the world without knowing what a database is, how to use it correctly, and so on.
That's amazing. And also, she gave me a pass on saying her last name. So totally appreciated on that front. And last but by no means least, Frances.
Thank you, Lori. Hello, Internet. My name is Frances, and I am a software engineer at PlanetScale and also a maintainer of Vitess, an open source distributed MySQL database.
Cool. So I think all of you understand the one thing that everyone here on this panel has in common, and that is educating people on how to use databases and databases on Kubernetes, and everyone has their own different technical expertise. So with that being said, let's start at the beginning. So the first question I have to all of you, and if you would like to ask a question to the panelists, please go ahead and type it in the chat, and I think in the YouTube chat or whatever chat you're looking at, and Paul is going to pop it in to our chat, so then we'll be able to ask those questions in real time. So when they come in, we'll try to get them asked and answered. So please feel free to go ahead and do that as we go along. I think that's it for housekeeping. Anyways, okay, so back to the beginning. If you are someone that is just starting your journey to the cloud and are so confused on where to start with database and Kubernetes, where do you begin? And Karen, I'm going to throw that one to you, and everyone else just jump in where you feel like you can.
Okay, so I would say that even before answering that question, some people are resisting starting that journey. So a lot of the people that I speak to when I go and give talks about Kubernetes, running databases on Kubernetes, they're still kind of at the shock horror stage. So, the containers are stateless, so we can't be running stateful workloads in containers, and the containers are ephemeral, so we can't be running databases in containers. So there's a lot of kind of reassurance that needs to be done. So that's kind of even before people get to the, where do I start? What do I do? Because, DBAs are risk averse and change averse, and that's usually a good thing, because databases aren't supposed to be exciting, are they? So yeah, that's a big thing, and a big thing that I really like to talk about, to try and reassure people that with all of the features that you get from Kubernetes, it really is okay to start this journey, and it's not new anymore. And you can talk to people who've already done this, who've already started this journey. So I think that kind of the reassurance is my first step.
If I can jump in, I'd say that when people want to run databases on Kubernetes, there are two kinds of people. There are DBAs that needs to be convinced that Kubernetes is stable enough and won't mess up their little baby databases that they love. And there are developers who are ready to run everything in Kubernetes, but might not know the specificities of databases and why DBAs are so conservative, and might not want to go without an assessment of the risk and so on.
So how do you
So I'd
bridge that
say,
gap?
yeah.
Like, so
Sorry.
how do you bridge that gap? Like, we've got DevOps, right? So that was developers and ops, and then okay, that makes sense that we work together. So how do you take a very conservative and scared DBA and a like gung-ho developer? How do you get them to sort of a level playing field and say, this is how we start?
So that's where Postgres operators or database operators for Kubernetes would come in, because that lets both of those sides have the, like, it gives the DBAs the reassurance and it gives the developers that ability to just kind of go in and do it.
Exactly, yeah. And also, maybe it's easier for me as a former DBA to speak to the DBAs, but both developers and DBAs are tech people who normally are very curious and loves to experiment. So you just give them some playground and they will play with it. And the more they will play with it, the more they will like it.
I think I can add to that because, my perspective is as an engineer who only worked in like EC2 type environments. And then when I got here in Vitesse, it's 100% Kubernetes and there's nothing to it but to do it. I think Kubernetes and database and Kubernetes is like a system like any other, and anyone who loves systems will love understanding them with the new constraints of Kubernetes. And I think I wasn't a DBA, so I'm unfamiliar with that kind of fear. But I think in terms of like the fear of like statelessness, I think about how, well, a database isn't actually stateless, right? And topology isn't exactly stateless. And so you still have some levers, I guess, that all work together to make, a really good database system on Kubernetes.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we're there, what do you guys see are some of the most common problems that people encounter while they're, in working in this field?
Okay, I answer. The problem is, as I said, we have two kind of people and none is knowledgeable in both the database area and the Kubernetes area. So the first thing is we need to train more people to be comfortable with databases and with Kubernetes. And that's something we're trying to do. We're trying to explain because people are afraid because they don't know how it works. So explaining how it works is the best way to prevent people to be afraid. And then again, it's not, of course, there is some theory, but you need to put your hands into the under the hood and to play with it. And it's the only way to feel confident enough to run it. It's just to play with it. And it's a toy. You should be happy to play with toys.
And I think Vitesse and I'm sure any other open source or other distributed database in Kubernetes has always excellent docs, excellent how to get started guides that just allow you to just get started very quickly and try it out in like, a small local environment before you decide to do it in your production environment.
And
Yeah,
also, if you're more comfortable with videos, there are a lot of great videos on the internet explaining how to install a database on Kubernetes using an operator. Sorry, Karen.
No, that's good. Yeah, so it very much is that as soon as you get in and start playing with it, you, people realize how much fun it is. If you're not used to working with something like Kubernetes, as an old school DBA, you have to write scripts for everything. You have to be constantly watching everything. You have to be doing so many tiny, minute, detailed things all the time. And to then see something like Kubernetes, which is just self-healing and which is just pulling everything constantly back into the state that you want, it just feels like magic. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that we all come into technology in the first place is to see all those things happening. And I think working with Kubernetes and then with database operators on Kubernetes, I think it's like the first time that I got that feeling of real magic back for a long time. I was like, wow, and when you demonstrate these things to people, you show them how quick it is to set up a high availability cluster with backup and recovery, with monitoring, with all of the things that would take you days and weeks to try and put in place yourself. When you show that being set up in, well, half an hour if you're going slowly and explaining it as you go along, and then you show like deleting your primary database pod and everything just kind of magically coming back together, people are really excited by that. So yeah, bringing people in to see that, I think then they'll want to learn more and they'll want to do things.
I just felt so inspired by that, and I really like how you said the self part, because that really is the part that is so nice and magical.
And actually, when I try to convince DBA, that's exactly what I say. I say, all the boring tasks that you have to do will be gone, and you will be left with only the interesting part of the DBA job. How cool is that?
Absolutely.
I think that's a great segue into this next question. And I know this is like buzzword bingo, and people at home, please forgive me. But when we talk about automation and not having to do the boring stuff, it's 2025. We can't escape the phrase artificial intelligence and AI. So, how do you see AI interacting with this world of database on Kubernetes?
Okay, I will go. um, First, I don't agree that when they say that AI will do the code for you, it's not removing the boring part of the job. Actually, it's the fun part that is removing. So if AI could fill my timesheet, that'd be great. If it could automatically fill my expense notes, I'd be delighted. It would be delightful. But coding for me, please let me code, because that's what I love. That's the first thing. The second thing is Postgres in particular has been created back in 1986 with extensibility in mind, because Michael Stumbraker said, we have no idea the usage we will have for databases in the next years. So he wanted to create something that could be flexible enough to adapt to other use cases. And that's exactly how it was with Postgres. We have great extensions that allow to do artificial intelligence in Postgres, storing and retrieving vectors with extensions like PG vectors, but there are others. And so I don't think that's a particular problem for Postgres.
And I'd like to just hop in with maybe a MySQL or non-Postgres opinion. I don't think we should be afraid of AI coming in for databases, because AI generates so much data, right? We have seen, among our users, just a massive increase in amounts of data that they're storing, in databases. And for me as an engineer, that's incredibly exciting, because we're going to think about, how do we make everything like, more resilient? How do we do all these things performantly? And it's an incredibly exciting time and place to be with all the data that we have, and even with MySQL, there's so many interesting things to do now. PlanetScale and Vitess, we're building vector search right into MySQL. And so when you think about that, it's just a really exciting time, I suppose. And I don't really see it as a negative thing at all either.
Yeah, databases aren't going anywhere. There's going to be more and more need for databases. The way they're used will change. The places they're stored might change. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of work for all of us database professionals for a very long time to come.
And let's remember that the role of databases is also to make sure that we have a highest quality of data. And with low quality of data, you won't have great AI insights. So that's something very, very important for AI.
Now, just speaking of databases in general, I kind of brushed over this, but open source databases versus closed source databases. Where are your opinions on that and how that feeds into this funnel of moving your data onto Kubernetes? Go for it,
I
Karen.
thought Letitia was going to jump straight in there. Um, I think we're all on this call very much open source advocates. I was saying earlier, I was actually an Oracle DBA for 20 years before I moved into Postgres. So I kind of moved from one side to the other. And I love working with Postgres. I love being part of the Postgres community. I love the fact that you can actually help shape something. It's fantastic. And certainly with something like Kubernetes, where it's fast moving and you've got lots of people that want to be involved, I think that open source, and Letitia had already mentioned things like the extensibility of Postgres. I think there is just, that's where it really, really, comes to the fore.
Yeah, I have something to add as someone who's working on both open source and also private at the same time. I'm on two different teams. So I think the community is incredibly exciting. It's very enriching, as Karen said. I think, and this harkens back to what we were talking about, the two kinds of users, the very careful DBA, the person who wants to just go in there and do things. They're not exactly different, but I think when someone wants to make a choice between open source and private, it's really about how much of it do you want to abstract away and how much of it do you want someone else to handle? And I think that is maybe a question that people can use to decide between private and open source.
I have another view, but it's more an ethical point of view. I think that the great thing when you are developing for an open source project is there is no pressure. You can take the time you want to release a feature because there's no pressure. If someone is not happy, they can do it. So that's really what I love. We can take the time to write good code, quality code. We don't have any pressure behind because no one will be paid at the end of the day. So that's something that I really love about coding for open source projects.
I kind of like to jump into that a little bit because everybody mentioned that they're a part of a different community. And I just want to ask, how did you get involved in the beginning? Like, Letitia, you're teaching master's students the things that they don't know that they didn't learn in college. Francis, you're a part of a company, but you're working on Vitess, which is open source. Karen, you're in Postgres. You have your own community stuff. Like CNCF is the foundation that houses Kubernetes, and it had its 10-year birthday, and there's tons of stuff going on there. But so how did you really kind of get involved and wanted to take I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it, but now I'm also doing this because the community needs this and I want to have a voice in how this is being shaped? Francis, I'm going to go with you first.
Okay, thank you. I'll go really fast. When I was leaving my last company to go to PlanetScale, I think I remember someone saying, "Oh, I didn't know you were passionate about databases." And I'm being honest, I wasn't at the beginning. I was passionate about the vision. And my background is as a product engineer. But I think I was just always staying curious. Eventually, everything leads back to the database. And I think that curiosity really led me to, taking part of the Vitess team and now being an open source maintainer on Vitess. So it really is just that curiosity about everything that goes into a good user experience that brought me to, ironically, a very back end thing, which is, a database.
I started as a Postgres DBA. My first job as a DBA was a Postgres DBA, which is, so it was in 2009, so some time ago. And I found out at that time, but I had already found out before that I was more skilled in databases than my fellow colleagues. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I did an engineering school where databases was more taught than in other engineering school. Actually, there is some particularities in France that the teachers in college, university, or schools have to be researchers. And in Lyon, where I studied, there were these labs for databases. So that's why I had more teachers about databases than any other engineering school elsewhere in France. So maybe that's one of the reasons. And I found out that I loved it. And the first time I discovered that there was this RDBMS and I could read the source code, I fell in love with it. Actually, I love it that much that I created a dress with printing on Postgres code on it. And it has Pocket. Yeah, that's how I see it. Actually, I've said several times that to me, Postgres code is like poetry. It's great code, good quality code, and I'm very, very happy to be able to contribute to that project.
So, as I said, I was an Oracle DBA for 20 years before I accidentally started working with Postgres. It was purely because I was the so-called database expert in a team, and they decided that the next project was going to be Postgres. So it was, Karen, you're the database expert. You can set this up for us. So I had to go and learn Postgres, find out, what it was all about. And I was actually very, very lucky, and it was Leticia who introduced me to the rest of the Postgres community. And I think the honest answer about how and why I got so involved in it is because I still haven't learned to say no. So if I see something that needs doing, or if someone asks me to do something, I will generally say, yeah, that's fine, I can do that. So that's how I've got involved with helping to run conferences, with looking now at how I can help to make changes to the conference organization system that we use, working on the diversity task force, you name it. So at some point, maybe I'll learn to dial back on that a bit. But if there's something that I'm passionate about and that matters to me, then I kind of want to be involved. So.
Well, as the only non-technical person here, I have to say that you guys are so inspiring. And for me, I feel like what you do is magic. And I think we all laughed when you said you don't know how to say no, because I think once you become immersed in an open source community, whichever community it is, because you're passionate, because you're excited, because you see holes that need to be like that you can like perhaps, offer your advice or whatever, you keep saying yes because it doesn't feel like work. And even though it's a lot of work, let's be real. Like, come on, I know we're all probably pretty tired, but it's something that you see and it advances. I mean, I was voluntold to get involved in open source and I've never left. And I just think that it's amazing from an external standpoint, someone that's always worked in sort of closed source sort of environments, to see the knowledge sharing, the willingness to help, to mentor, the amount of mentorship programs that are out there, the ability to network and introduce people to new communities, and how that's just kind of a part of like par for the course, right? Like this is how we advance and we move forward, and being able to contribute at any level is welcome. And I think that's something that really just is cool about open source in general. But I will step off that soapbox because I think we're all on it together, which is super cool. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about trends. So we kind of hit a little. Okay, sweet. We have a question from Ryan that I'm going to ask, and it says, with many of you having been started as DBAs or different roles, where do you see the role of K8's operators stopping and the DBA beginning, or are they symbiotic? So if you like, I can say that again, or are we good?
I will answer that.
Great.
Actually, the line is blurred, of course, but I'd say it's the same kind of line that you have between what is a sysadmin job and a DBA job. So from time to time, you will have to run sysadmin commands to know what's going on until you can say that's not a problem for the database, that's a problem for the operating system. So you will have the same thing with Kubernetes. You will have to run kubectl commands to find out where is the problem until you can say, definitely, that's not a database problem.
I think this is probably something that would be interesting to hear Francis' view on, because you would probably look at the operator from a slightly different point of view to myself and Laetitia.
I actually was waiting for your insight so I could understand the DBA side of things. In terms of the role of the operator versus DBA, I don't think anyone is out looking to replace a DBA, right? I think we're only out to make their lives easier, handle a lot of the extra stuff they need to do day to day, but ultimately still give them overall control of the database and everything they need to be successful in their day-to-day job. And my perspective of it is not only like the operator and the DBA, but also like even when we get to like the more private stuff, that's past the operator. So I really see it as just making their lives easier. I don't know if I should get more specific than that.
Yeah, for me, it's very much it's doing all of the automation. It's doing the day-to-day kind of nitty-gritty things that you would have a DBA would have had to script or
But you don't want to handle failovers yourself, right? Like you want that.
Exactly. And anybody who's, for example, installed and configured a database environment where you've got a primary and multiple replicas, you've got your automatic failover, you've got your backup and recovery, you've got all of the monitoring tools. Anyone who's had to go in and install and configure that manually and then maintain that system knows that it takes time. It's not just the time it takes to do it, it's the time it takes you to think about it in advance and decide exactly how all those things fit together. It's the fact that you're bound to have something that goes slightly differently each time. It's the fact that then someone else has to be able to come in and do that afterwards. It's all of that. It's there for you and it lets you concentrate. I think Letitia already said it earlier on the fun bits. You can do your data modeling. I mean, I love data modeling. It's great fun, but how many DBAs usually get time to do that kind of thing? You can do the more kind of long-term planning. You can think more about the wider architecture and how your database fits into other things. And yeah, so it's very much a tool. It's helping.
Actually, when you are a DBA in production, most of the time, the team is undersized and you are basically a fighter, and you're fighting fire every day, and there's no time to prevent fire to begin. So that's kind of a vicious circle. You don't have the time to fix things permanently. So then they break and you have to take care of because it's broken. And so you don't have the time to fix it permanently and so on. And actually, I've seen that at one of my customers. I won't say the name, but let's say it's a big bank. And they had over 900 instances of Postgres and there were two to manage over 900 instances of Postgres manually. There was no Kubernetes and so on. That's not doable. That's simply not doable. They can't upgrade, even with minor upgrades. They don't have the time to apply minor upgrades. So that's also a security risk where there are a lot of problems on top of that. But yeah, and the fact that now with Kubernetes, you can manage more instances with less people, while we know how difficult it is to hire a DBA, means that you will be able to operate your databases with less risks. And that's very important.
So one of the things I just wrote down based on what you just said, Letitia, and I think both Francis and Karen, you kind of echoed this, is managing more with less. So that brings us to platform engineering. So how do you guys feel about like tools like Backstage and where you're getting something to help you manage your Kubernetes like on in a platform? How do you feel about that shift?
Sorry, do you mean even moving beyond an operator onto like a platform?
Yes. Or do we want to talk about operators first? Because there's so many, like how do you choose? It's like sort of two questions.
Hmm. Could you reframe that question in the platform sense, and I can try and see if I have some insight?
Okay, so if you're already kind of strapped for resources and there's platforms out on the marketplace right now, open source, which is great, right? So you're not worried about licensing and constraints of vendor lock-in, and you're trying to up level everyone to a point, right? How do you feel about this influx of platforms to help you with engineering and specifically like managing your database on Kubernetes through a platform? Like if you're, not familiar with Kubernetes, but you're a DBA and have to, there's, now platforms out there that let you do that. So I was just kind of curious to see like, what do you think about that sort of shift in a model?
Oh, I mean, I'm biased, but personally, I love it. You know? I think everyone said this. It's really just about making things easier for everyone. Letitia said this or this metaphor about, they don't have enough time to put out all these fires. Well, using a platform gives you time because it puts out the other fires and gives you time to be more prepared for, a truly like for edge cases, I guess. It's really just removing the trouble of the day to day. So you only need to worry about edge cases. And for me as an engineer, that's incredibly comforting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'm trying to remember who it was that said it. There was a really good keynote that I watched at a developer conference where they explained about, just concentrating on the things um, that are in your remit, concentrating on the things that either you do well or that you are really interested in managing, or that it really time makes sense for you to use your time doing. So if it doesn't make sense for you to be trying to learn new skills and manage new things, then it just makes so much more sense to use a platform where someone else has already put the expertise in there. So that you're not going off and trying to spread yourself too thin, doing all sorts of different things that aren't really your area of expertise. I don't know if I explained that very well.
I think I would summarize what you just said, Karen, as let us who are passionate about, building database tools handle the stuff that you don't want to do so you can be passionate or do the things that you're passionate about, right?
That was much better, thank you.
Thanks.
I love that. So with that, let's sort of talk about some trends. We got some time here. So what trends are you seeing within the database on Kubernetes sort of environments? Like where do you see things going? I know that Kubernetes just celebrated 10 years, but data on Kubernetes is relatively new. So what do you see as the next iteration? Where are things going?
Um, I can start with that one. I think my take on it is I think we're moving into kind of like back to the basics. No more like flashy features or like marketing driven concepts. I think we're going back to two things. It's just cost and performance at the end of the day. Like that's really what I think any user really cares about. And so that's kind of what I see us trending towards.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of database as a service. So organizations that want to make databases available really easily internally. So they just want to make sure that that developers or other people that need a database can just get a database when they want one. So obviously you've got some of the external services that you can use for that, but then a lot of people just want to do that in-house. They want people to be able to just click a button and have a database. And I think databases on Kubernetes is just the perfect way to be able to do that because of all that automation that we were talking about, because everything's repeatable, because it's there for you. You don't have to think about it. It's just click a button and there you are.
And Francis, as you put in the chat, like you work at a DBaaS company, so can you give us some sort of reasonings as to why people are choosing DBaaS?
I think it's an extension of what everyone else already said. We talked about what role does an operator play for a DBA. I see, an operator as simplifying a DBA's life. And then just right on top of that, I see DB SaaS as further simplifying that, I guess. I think it is up to the user what kinds of things they want to worry about day to day. I think that if you need to get started very quickly, DB SaaS is a great tool. And, it's just how many day-to-day things would you like other engineers at different places to worry about, essentially, I think. And so I'm biased, obviously, but I'm a very big fan of DB SaaS. I think it makes a lot of users' lives easier and frees them up to think about the things that they want to think about. Which for me, because we are also users of our own things, for me personally, I get to spend all my time on, business logic and how that looks in a database. Like that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm able to do that, every day.
About the DBA database as a service, I'd say it's a choice between controlling totally your environment and paying someone to do it, but you control it less. At the same time, when you control everything, it will you will have to do it. You will have to manage it and so on. And as we already said, hiring DBAs is quite difficult at the moment. So maybe, and sometimes when you're a small company, you don't have enough workload for a full-time DBA. So that can be a problem too. So I think that databases as a service is a good thing for small projects or for companies, small companies. But when you become bigger and bigger, then it will be way more expensive than operating it by yourself, even if it can be a private cloud that you operate yourself. But having a database as a service when you have a 500 terabyte database, that might be a problem.
Well, that brings me on to kind of an anti-pattern that we see, and that is very much people just moving their monoliths into Kubernetes. So because they've caught onto the idea that yep, running databases on Kubernetes is now it's no longer cutting edge. It really is safe to do. It's good to do. So of course, all of their databases will now be in Kubernetes, and you can run monolith databases in Kubernetes if you want to, but I really don't see that as the use case. The thing is that you really can spin things up and shut them down quickly. You can set something up over here. You've got flexibility, you've got scalability. So I really like it when people are thinking about how they can make the most out of databases on Kubernetes rather than just, okay, we've got a monolith over here on VMs. Let's move that into Kubernetes because clearly that's the way to go.
I I will just say one last thing because again, I am a little bit biased. I work at a DB SaaS company. I will say in terms of cost and performance, those are things we think about every day, and everything is a trade-off, I would say it's not necessarily not worth it. We have plenty of very, very large customers and very large workloads on us. It's a decision of do you want your DBA worrying about little things like how to connect to a database or like how to tell everyone else how to do that. It's about, it's trade-offs everywhere. And that's kind of how I personally think about cost of, DB SaaS versus running it yourself. And The last thing I'll add that I realized while they were all talking is another value is not just abstracting away some of the things you don't want to do. It's also about providing good defaults. It's about, do you want to spend all the time to read about every single little thing, every single flag you need to set, for this to run properly? Or do you trust us to kind of suggest, look at your workload and suggest, the best option? So that's just another aspect.
I think this brings us back to like the idea of due diligence, right? Like you do need someone or something to go to help you figure out what's the best path forward for your company. And you can fail fast and that's great, but there's always this idea of like, who can I learn from? So I'm going to just throw this out there. Like, where would you go for reference architecture or for some sort of helpful hints on how to like move things forward? Paul mentioned the DOK Getting Started guide, which is a great place to go to kind of look for things. But if you're getting started, where would you look?
I would say the three of us on this call, on this panel, are probably all biased because each of us could say, look at our company's website, look at the tutorials we're offering. I know I can say that about Crunchy Data, and I imagine that the other two are kind of thinking exactly the same thing. Come and look, we've got a GitHub repo where you can see loads of examples of how to do this and you can start playing. So yeah, I suspect that's the case for all of our companies, that we really want people to be able to try this, and there are things out there that you can play with, and like we were talking about earlier, it's fun. It's great to just go and have a try.
And I personally also have fun reading papers. And it's not even going to be papers, related to even MySQL even. It's really interesting to read about different case studies, how different databases are solving the same problems. It's like a wealth of knowledge out there that you can really get excited about.
I also think that the difficulty here is that, for example, for Postgres, the community does not give any insight. Well, I mean, the official PostgreSQL.org website won't give you anything about how you should do things, what is the best architecture in which case, and so on, because that's not the goal of the community. And as it's IT, we know that everything is possible, but not everything comes with the same trade-offs and with the same cost and with the same risks and so on. So that's a very tough question, but I'd say that if you want to play with databases and Kubernetes, you should try out operators and look at the documentations with operators because they have figured that out for you.
And Paul mentioned earlier the Data on Kubernetes Day in London on the 1st of April. So that is absolutely something that people should come to. I'm biased there because I'm going to be there and I'm going to be speaking. So.
I also think that leads to a great point, is using the community to help and to ask questions. So DOK, if you go to the website, we have a Slack channel that you can join. Kubernetes belongs to the CNCF. You can go to their CNCF Slack channel and ask questions. And I think it goes again back to this whole idea of open source and educating and helping people get started or, answer questions. So there's nothing wrong with asking a question in GitHub, asking a question on Slack, finding one of us on LinkedIn and asking us a question. I think that is one of the things that I value most about being a part of open source communities, is that if I don't know, I'm going to try to find someone that does to help you, because we've all been there. And I think, nobody needs to bang their head against a wall, right? Like it's nothing wrong with asking, how else are you going to learn? So we've got just a few minutes left. So I think what we can do is maybe go around the panel and you guys can just give your sort of final thoughts on this whole topic of hesitancy and how do you get people more confident with moving their data to Kubernetes and managing in that way. So Tiffany, where did that come from? My goodness. Guys, it's been a long day. Francis, let's start with you.
Maybe I do look like a Tiffany. My last thoughts, I guess, would be for people who are hesitant about Kubernetes, if you're an engineer and you're curious, it's going to be a lot of fun to learn about. I think Kubernetes, databases on Kubernetes, it's going to be fun. And if you are still worried, I think there are plenty of tools at your disposal. At your disposal. There's, we talked about operator, we talked about DB SaaS. There's different levels of which you can slot yourself where you don't need to worry about certain things, or if you want to worry about certain things, there's options for everyone. And the last thing I'd say is what I said before is there's nothing to it to do but to do it. So don't be scared, just dive in and start doing things.
Absolutely. And I think when I talk about um, playing and running databases on Kubernetes, it's kind of obvious how excited I am about it. And it really is fun. And you absolutely can, if you want to, just go in and build everything yourself. If you want to try things that way, sometimes that's a good thing to do um, just to get used to how the different Kubernetes components fit together. I would definitely not recommend doing that in production, but as a way to just kind of find out how things fit together and also get an idea of just how much there is in an operator, how much it's doing for you, you can try and fit some of those pieces together yourself. So yeah, I think learn a bit about Kubernetes. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be a Kubernetes administrator, but just learn a bit about the different components. Make sure that you know what persistent volumes are, and you know a little bit about how pods are scheduled and all that kind of thing. Just enough to then know what's going on behind the scenes. And then, yeah, just get kind of in there and start trying out some of the operators and have fun with it.
Leticia, kind of final thoughts on what to do, how to get started? Okay, looks like we might have lost her.
I have a comment while Leticia is. I really liked what Karen said. You don't need to know everything. Sometimes you can start with a higher level thing. You can start with DB SaaS, you can start with operator, just to like kind of get a sense of the bigger parts and then go down from there. Like don't feel like you need to learn all of the little things and build up. Sometimes you can start from the top and build down.
I'm sorry, my computer crashed. As a final word, I'd say that we need to reconcile two worlds: worlds of developers, world of operational DBAs, and they have different point of views of things, and we have to be mindful that there are different points of views and there are very legitimate reasons for that. I've been a production DBA. I've been on call and called every hour night at 2 a.m. for a month for sometimes. So that's something that explains why DBA loves stability. But also, I think that when you explain to them that we will get rid of all the boring tasks they don't want to do and won't have to do that, and that they can focus on helping with SQL queries writing, with database design, with making sure that once there's an incident, we can make sure that it does not happen again, then I'm very, very sure that all DBAs will be all in with Kubernetes.
Well, I have to say there's a powerhouse of intelligence in this room, and I'm so thankful to have shared this last hour with all of you and having you share your knowledge with our community. And just to wrap up and to bring it back home, you guys can go to dok.community to find out more about what we have going on, to find the reports that Paul mentioned, to see all of the stuff, to find the link to our Slack channel when we have our next SIG meeting, all of that good stuff. Also, April 1st is DOK Day at KubeCon, and we've got a half day a half-day session for you, which again, Karen will be speaking out. I will be opening with my SIG co-chair, Jonathan from EDB, which is going to be awesome. And then, of course, the entire KubeCon event is great. Don't forget to check out the Getting Started guide, or join the CNCF Slack channel, check out Vitesse, check out the Postgres community groups that everyone here is a part of, and all of the good things. So with that, Paul, I guess I'll hand it back to you, but I want to just really thank the panelists, thank the questions that came in, and look forward to the next one of these coming up.
Yeah, this was a great panel. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. And like Lori said, go to DOK Day at KubeCon if you have an all access pass. It's on the co-located events day on April 1st. We'll be in the first session. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining as well, for tuning in and listening to our amazing panelists. And yeah, we'll have to do some more panels in the future because I like the format. So yeah, and with that being said, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you at the next one. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.